you, Roger. Thank you for the China Gap for the invitation this morning. It's a pleasure to be here. I know we're running short of time, so we'll just get straight to it. What I'll cover this morning is a little bit of a market background on the wine market in China. It's very different to other markets. I'll go through some case studies on digital marketing and social media. I should say up front that none of these case studies are ones that I've worked on directly. I won't go through some of the learnings from Accolade Wines. In my experience, they're more what not to do rather than what to do in China, but we can leave that for another time. I'll incorporate suggestions on how to incorporate digital marketing and social media into your wine marketing activities. I should also say I hope there'll be some relevance for the tourism and education people that are here today in terms of the learnings and the strategy that I'll go through, and also some suggestions on other wine marketing opportunities. Okay, firstly, 80% of the purchases of wine are as gifts. A lot of wines can be just for display. They may not even be consumed. Most gifts are at festival and holiday times. Gift boxes and packaging are extremely important. Local Chinese wines, they have 90% volume share. The imported wine segment is very, very large in absolute terms, but you need to keep in mind that it still represents only 10% of the market. That may have changed in recent times. They have a higher value share, and that's growing, but it's still quite small in percentage share terms. Red wines are preferred. It's very much a cork market versus a screw cap for premium wines. Red is a very auspicious colour for Chinese people. That's one of the reasons that red wines have their appeal in China. There is an opportunity for sparkling wine and white wine amongst young female drinkers, especially in first-tier cities and like Shanghai, Beijing and Hong Kong, but sparkling wine and white wine at this point is still relatively small, so there's an opportunity there. Still very much a red wine market. On-premise channel dominates, and hypermarkets and online are growing. At-home consumption is relatively small, and when that changes, that will really accelerate the growth in the wine market in China. It's still very much on-premise channel consumption. This is from a McKinsey report. There's estimated to be 100,000 brands from 80 countries on sale in China. So that's obviously a very brutally competitive market, maybe the most competitive market in the world. Household income of 180,000 RMB, from what it seems to be the tipping point for people to switch from local to imported wines. It's very hard for imported wines to compete in the bottom value segment against Chinese wines directly at the 40 RMB upwards to 60, 80 RMB per bottle. Soft, fruity, sweet flavour profile is the most preferred. The traditional Bordeaux varieties, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Malbec, Petit Verdot. No strong earthy aromas or dominant tannins or acidic wines. In red wines, Sangiovese, Nebbiolo and Zinfandel, not going to have the same appeal to Chinese consumers. And there's a real opportunity potentially for Pinot Noir longer term. Okay. Food and wine pairing. That's a real challenge to match wines with Chinese food. As you know, Chinese meals can cover the whole spectrum of flavours and textures, from hot to cold dishes, from spicy to mild, from wet soups to dry, and that can all be within the one meal. So it's very, very difficult to match wines ideally with Chinese foods. Perceived health benefits versus baijiu. That's partly driven the growth of wine in China also. Lower alcohol, seen as much more cosmopolitan and sophisticated, that's driven the growth. First-tier cities, highly developed for imported wines. As you know, there's a lot more fine dining Western restaurants in Shanghai, Beijing and Guangzhou. A lot more expatriates live in those cities, so there's from that point of view, there's a lot more market for that. First-tier cities are a lot more expensive to advertise. They're cluttered and competitive. The same money that you spend in Shanghai will not nearly have the same cut-through and impact as it would in a second and third-tier city. There's a high appetite for wine education. Chinese consumers, they don't have parents as role models in the West. You know, where I learnt what I know about wine is firstly from my father and guiding you through what to drink and when to drink. Chinese consumers don't have that, so they're really looking for guidance and education as to what's the appropriate thing to drink and how to drink wine. And they don't want to look silly or uneducated in social situations, so there's that real thirst for knowledge. Packaging, design, colours and the Chinese name is also very, very critical. For premium wines, they really like heavy bottles for red wines. They use French bottle shapes and colours as their reference points. So for the really top end of the market, I think that's a good starting point. I've talked about cork, red wines. You don't see many things in China with a green colour. I won't go into the reasons for why, but yeah, green is not a good colour in China, as I've learnt the hard way. Source and type of wine information. This is from a wine intelligence studies. For those under the age of 45, the internet channel is the main one for wine info. Older consumers still use the internet, clearly, but they still rely on more traditional sources as well. I won't go through into the reasons for that. There are a lot of others here today who will take you through that. Sina Weibo is the #1 social media platform for wine. Obviously there are others, but Wine Intelligence is saying that that's very much at the top of the list. Desktop #1 and mobile tablets also strong and growing rapidly. What Chinese consumers want, they want short text in Mandarin and images and videos. If you look at the design of a typical Chinese website, there's a lot of information on there. For Western eyes, it's very cluttered and busy, but that's what Chinese consumers are used to and what they respond to. They're less into long-form text and podcasts. The information they're most interested in is on the wine type, style and region. And if you think about it, with so many brands on the market, it's really, really difficult to digest information about individual wine brands. What is a way that they can categorise and learn about all the different wine brands available? The starting point is to learn about the wine type and style from that particular region. In Australia, Barossa Valley has the highest awareness, followed by Margaret River. From what I understand, the other regions less so. So there's a real opportunity to grow their awareness of the specific wine regions in Australia. Food and wine matching. As you all know, food is very important to Chinese consumers, and they're keen to know how wine can enhance that experience. They're less interested in producer information and how the wine is made. As the market matures, I think they'll become more interested in that information. Okay, some case studies. First one is New Zealand Trade and Enterprises, New Zealand wine growers. The objective really was to drive awareness and recognition of New Zealand and New Zealand wines. The strategy was in 2012, 4 Sina Weibo bloggers were chosen to visit New Zealand wine regions during the grape harvest. Bloggers were chosen based on the topic interest and follower numbers, and they posted their experiences on the blog. The result was the New Zealand Wine Weibo account reached 10,000 followers post-campaign. Okay, Villa Maria, or a specific brand. Again, the objective being to drive brand recognition and awareness. Their strategy was to conduct a 5-day Sina Weibo campaign in the lead up to Valentine's Day 2013. The idea was to try and get consumers to express their love to others via the Villa Maria Weibo account to win prizes. The wines were offered as gifts for the best posts. They made the campaign also as easy as possible to enter. The result was the campaign drove an additional 10,000 followers, went from 6,000 to 16,000 followers. Okay, Wines of Provence, again a regional body. The background is that white and rosé, as I said earlier, are very small categories in China. The objectives were to try and engage female drinkers with Provençal rosé, promote Provence as a romantic holiday destination. The strategy was to run a campaign on Sina Weibo since 2012 up to the present, and really providing a portal or link content to reflect this. That included basic rosé knowledge, not so much that overwhelmed people, but there was more available if they wanted it. How to learn French, star sign gossip, and sharing romantic stories. How many Australian websites for wine do you know that have sharing romantic stories on them? Not many. The result was an increase in Provençal rosé sales. I don't have specific numbers on that, but they believe it was very successful, and they increased the number of followers to 42,000 as a result of that campaign.